parsha is Parshat Behar-Bechukotai. Fascinatingly deep Torah portions this week, as it is every week. Although this week is a double portion, there's a lot to unpack. I won't have time to unpack everything with you, but certainly the pieces that I have here for you, I believe, are meaningful and deep. And I'm going to highlight and focus our attention today with the ending of the book of Vayikra, the end of the book of Leviticus. Now, if you are not familiar, the ending of the book of Leviticus is a very somber, read of tremendous amounts of warning. God over here warns, he admonishes his people to beware of the terrible fate that will befall his people if they abandon his covenant. And now there's a fascinating verse over here that we keep reading over and over again, and you'll see it. I'm gonna mention it over here. I just think there's nothing like Hebrew, but as far as being expressing ideas. So the verse reads like this. Um, excuse me. The verse reads like this. It says. Where is it? 24. That I will go, then I will walk in. Now, if you do these things, then I will walk with you. But carry with indifference. No, wrong verse. If you do not follow these precepts, and you do not return to me, and you walk with me, carry. You walk with me. Carry is happenstance or indifference. Okay, if you, I'm about to be invaded. My daughter's coming in. She's searching for something. I think her iPad died. My wife's not here. You're in trouble. Here she comes. She'll be storming at any moment. So if your attitude is such of happenstance, if your attitude is, well, I'm in the middle of teaching my class right now. You're gonna have to wait for me to finish. Now, when I'm finished, I'll come and do it. Okay? You could ask Yaakov if he can help you. That door is locked. Okay, sorry. Uh, where was I? So yes, verse says that the Torah warns us that our undoing will come about as a result of carry. When we do things in happenstance, when everything is just a mere act of fate, that is when we get in trouble. Now, Maimonides, the ultimate philosopher, comes along and he teaches us that when suffering is visited upon us, when people are going through calamities, they're going through hardships, we're commanded to cry out and awaken our people by sounding the shofar. Okay? When there are people that are going through hardships, our responsibility, Ramosha ben Maimon says, is to go ahead and sound the shofar. Everyone has to be alerted. Everyone has to know that this thing happened, that something horrible happened, so that you can examine your commitment. So you could examine your life. So you could go ahead and make sure that you are doing what you can as far as your adherence to the Torah and mitzvot. And most significantly, Harambam warns us that when it comes to tragedies, you should never ever say that they are. Do you know where the charger is? I do.
It's so cute. Yeah, they all have these kids that come in, and it's so cute. Oh my God, the little voices are precious.
Yes, they are so precious. When it's ready, I'll bring it back to you. Okay? Thank you. Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so he says, the Harambam says that if you see the events that happen around us as just happenstance, right? He says, if you see tragedies that befall our communities as natural happenings, that this is something that this is the way of the world, he said that is to be guilty of cruelty. If you believe when bad things happen into the world, happen accidentally, he says, this is you turning into a monster. Now, it's very difficult at first glance to understand what Rambam is teaching us over here. To use the word cruelty to describe those who view these tribulations as natural occurrences, people are guilty of worse things. I mean, you could say apathy, you could say being obtuse, blindness, but why cruelty over here? And the answer, I believe, is simple. If you spend some time internalizing the tragedy of Meron, these 45 individuals who lost their lives last week, it's so easy to talk about, well, whose fault is it? Why did it happen? How did it happen? At the end of the day, we'll never know why. I don't know whose fault it is. It doesn't matter. The question is, how are we internalizing this message? Now, if we see our pain and suffering in life, our challenges as mere coincidence, we have no motivation to examine our lives. There's no motivation to abandon our old ways. There's no motivation to change. So, yes, and when you see things as being happenstance, that attitude is cruel because it invites more misfortune upon us and the world around us. We have to see every negative event that happens, that befalls us, as an opportunity to examine our traits, to examine our behavior, and to ask, how are we growing as individuals? This thing that happened to Meron, oh, it happened in Israel. It's so far away. Poor people, not my family, other people. Wrong. Those are our people. That's our land. That is an invitation for you and I to look within ourselves, examine who we are, what are we doing, what can we be doing better? How are we taking the message of what happened and internalizing it and asking ourselves, are we doing what we should be doing? Are we in a place where we could be doing more? Maybe we're doing too much, even. Okay, so cruelty is when you see misfortune upon other people and you just see it as happenstance. Why? Because you're refusing to see the divine providence, that God's hand, Yad Hashem, in your daily lives. When we believe that things happen simply because they happen to happen, when we allow suffering to continue, and when we create a wall between ourselves and God above, it's cruelty to relegate God to God's wake-up call, God's unique way of reaching out to us, and say that's Carrie. That's something that's mere coincidence. That's happenstance. This is a unique opportunity to wake up, my friends. These things don't happen accidentally. These are unique opportunities to hear the alarm, to listen to the sound of the shofar. The shofar is blowing. Are you listening, my friends? At the end of the parsha, after the Torah goes through all the different types of calamities that will befall Am Yisrael, God makes a promise. And he says, I'm going to remember my covenant. I'll remember my covenant with Yaakov. I'll remember my covenant with Yitzchak, my brit with Abraham, and so on and so forth. I'll remember my first original covenant that I made with those my ancestors, your ancestors in Egypt. Before the eyes of the nations, to be unto them as a God. Ani Hashem, I am God. These are the Torah, these are my mitzvot. Follow them. That's how it ends, right? But it's interesting that it begins with this notion of recognizing the covenant of Yaakov, of Jacob, the covenant of Isaac, the covenant of Abraham. Now, this is this eternal guarantee that no matter what happens, the Jewish people will be redeemed in the merit of our patriarchs, will be redeemed in the merit of our ancestors. Now, there's one aspect of this covenant that is very puzzling. Now, why the reverse order? Why start with the covenant of Yaakov? Why not begin with the covenant of Abraham in the tefillah, in our silent amidah, in the prayer? We say, okay, Abraham, okay, Yitzchak, okay, Yaakov. Over here, it does it the exact opposite order. Now, at the beginning of the parsha, when we are warned about the terrible curses that are going to befall our people if we abandon God's covenant, we are also told how it could happen that we, the people of the book, the nation who stood at Mount Sinai, who heard God's voice, could have forgotten the divine calling. Now, these curses are given in 7 ascending steps of severity. And each one of these ascending steps correspond to people's continuing failure to take the punishments to heart and to learn to repent from them. Okay. So now, to be sure, no Jew ever woke up one morning and suddenly decided, forget it, I'm out of here. I'm just going to leave. I'm going to abandon my Judaism. I don't want to be Jewish today. It's over. I'm done. It never happens. No one wakes up and say, I don't want to be Jewish anymore. There's a very slow 7-step process that our parsha delineates that explains why and how people walk away from their faith, right? And it's very clear. It's beautiful. If you want to find this, you want to see it on your own, you can look at it on yourself. Look up. It's in Vayikra. It's in Leviticus. It's in chapter 26. It's verse 14. Those 7 verses go through everything over there. Ve'im lo tishmuli, and if you do not listen to my commands, lo tasu et if you don't follow my commands, Behar-Bechukotai, and if you ignore my decrees, timasu, and you find them loathsome. And he goes through each one of these 7 verses is a 7-step process that explains this breakdown in our relationship. Okay. Now, um, how does it work? Okay, so just so it's clear, um, the first step is the breakdown in learning Torah. When someone no longer learns Torah, when there is a complete break, and someone says, I'm just no longer learning, that breakdown is the first step to your demise, your Jewish demise. The second is your laxness in your Torah observance. The third is mockery, mocking those people that observe the commandments, okay, that he personally abandoned. Now, one breakdown leads to another until it culminates in the 7th, and the covenant is completely forsaken. It is the consequence of this abandonment that the curses fall upon us. Now, how do we redeem ourselves? If these are the 7 steps that lead us away from our Judaism, how do we make sure that we never ever lose ourselves to don't touch that, to the world around us? Okay, the simple answer is just reverse the process, right? God, just like God reversed the names of the patriarchs, right? Reclaim the first step. What's the first step that leads you to abandon your Torah tradition, your faith, your Judaism? Torah study. If you want to go ahead and make sure you never are disconnected from your Jewish heritage, make sure you're engaged in learning Torah, and the rest will follow. This is key. Now, we make a mistake, unfortunately, in thinking that Jewish education is going to solve everything. So just send your kid to a good school, yeshivot, they'll take care of everything. Mistake. My friends, God willing, for those of you that have kids and those of you that don't have kids yet, your schools, they're partners with us, and therefore they only do so much. Your job is to transcend these ideas that Torah is just a subject, like Bible. We don't want our kids to learn Bible. We want them to learn Torah. I don't want my kids to learn ancient Babylonian literature. I want them to learn Gemara. I don't want them to just take Hebrew, to learn Hebrew as a subject. I want them to learn Lashon HaKodesh. I want them to see the beauty and the depth behind everything that is Jewish and Judaism. The schools don't do that. The schools are there to make sure that they're doing their work to understand the basics. The parents, our job is to make sure that these guys understand the beauty, the depth of our heritage. How does it begin? Where do you start? Teaching. Did you learn the parsha today in school? What's the parsha? Do you remember it? What did your Mora teach you today? You forgot already? She told you about the Behar-Bechukotai, that the Jewish people were standing at Har Sinai and they heard the Torah. Did she teach you about Shemitah this week?
Yeah.
Now, what happens on Shemitah? You forgot already? What about like 7 years you work the land, 6 years you work the land, the 7th year you don't work the land, and there's a miracle that all of the land will continue to grow, all of its vegetation. Did you teach you that? Not yet? Okay, fine. Maybe that's too big of a word. But she generally comes home with, do you have a parsha sheet? Yeah, you do. Every week she comes home with a parsha sheet. At this age, she's 4. Okay, the teachers go through whatever stories they tell them. And now it's my job to read that parsha sheet with her and go over it with her, and then try to add, beyond whatever it is the teacher is teaching. That requires me to spend my time in, having the book open, preparing, and being able to have that conversation with her in a way that's meaningful, and then continue to do it with her for the rest of her life. Now, the opening verse says, "Im bechukotai telechu," right? The word telechu, right? It uses the word walk. If you walk in my statutes, that's a very odd walking. Telechu is a very odd word to use, right? Maybe a more appropriate word would be to observe. Maybe you want to use that verb, to study. But the Torah is teaching us, when you do that, the people hear you scratching it. When the Torah is teaching us how to safeguard our spiritual lives and preserving our special Jewish souls. What does walking mean? What does walking express? Walking expresses constant movement. It teaches us that we never ever graduate from learning Torah. We never graduate from Torah study. As long as we are alive, we have to continue to develop and delve deep into the deepest meaning and secrets of our Torah. Our Chachamim tell us even more than that. Walking, the word telechu, means amelut. What is amelut? It means to toil in Torah. You got to put your heart, your soul into your study. It's not enough to say, okay, I'm going to read a book, I'm going to go lie in my bed and fall asleep, and that's my learning. That's not learning. That's reading. That's casual reading. To learn means to commit to memory. To learn means that we study and we teach it with passion, with every single fiber of our being. If we are able to do that, we are going to reap the benefits of its toil. Walking also implies that we, as Jews, are charged with this imperative of following this well-trodden path of our ancestors. It's only by following in their path that we can be true to our calling, to our mission. What's our mission? What's our calling? Well, we have several of them. On the most outer one is a mission to become a nation of priests, to become a nation of people that are sensitive, to become a people that want to serve the world, to be a people that want to give, a people that want to love, to be like the descendants of Aaron, to be an Ohev Shalom and a Rodev Shalom, to be a lover of peace and a pursuer of peace, to become an Am Kadosh, Kadoshim to you. We're meant to be holy, to distinguish ourselves from the people, not to allow ourselves to fall into the same path as everybody else. How are you growing and developing yourselves? These parshiot, these two parshiot this week that we're reading, don't allow yourself to get distracted by the curses and the challenges that the Torah is throwing out at us. That's a mistake. The parsha is here to inspire you. No parent wants to punish their children, but sometimes I got to remind my kids that if they do bad, they're going to get in trouble. These are consequences. You don't have to go that way. No matter what happens, you will be redeemed. But how do you find yourself standing at the gates of success? How are you able to go ahead and transition yourself out of uncertainty into certainty? Very simple. Read the book. Learn, my friends. And while I think these kinds of classes are great because they're quick, they're easy, they're fast, they're in, and I encourage you to go to them, but not not if it's going to take away from your own unique ability to learn something more profoundly. This does not replace, this kind of learning should not replace deeper learning, bechavruta, or a shiur that's going to really challenge you, something that you're going to walk away with on your own. And the question you need to ask yourselves is like this: what is the goal of your studying? What do you want to walk away with? What information do you need to become a greater Jew, a greater human being? That's the only question you should be asking. Behar-Bechukotai are about this. If you are able to study and dedicate yourself to your own Jewish development and growth, you will find yourself lacking nothing. If you don't cling, learn, grow as a human being or as a Jew, unfortunately, you'll staring down the barrel of all kinds of curses. Not because God's cursing you, because if you don't grow, unfortunately, all these negative things become a reality for you. The pain and the suffering that we go through in life is not a extension or a reflection of God's desire to punish you. It's there all as a corrective measure, saying, hey, wake up, my friends. There's a call, there's a battle cry that's going out. You have the potential of becoming infinite. I hope I hope you will do everything and anything in your power to achieve it. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom Mevarach. You should have a Shabbat of only brachot, no klalot. Recognize that all you got to do is put the effort, a little bit of effort. Gemara says that if you open up your heart as little as the eye of a needle, God will open up the gates of heaven for you. Put in that effort, my friends, in your limud Torah, in your amelut, in your the depth push. I know it's hard. I know it's hard. I'm telling you, I struggle with it. Push, 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 and you will find yourself standing in success in everything that you do. Shabbat shalom avrach. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you have an amazing Shabbat. Say Shabbat shalom to everybody. Bye. Shabbat shalom. Take
Bye,
care.
Rabbi.
My pleasure. Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Shabbat shalom. Thank you so much for listening, everybody.